Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Ben, and this is a used book haul. So, one of the towns near me in Connecticut, Newtown, every single year they have a very large used book sale. It's lasts for several days. It's one of those ones that the first day you have to pay an admission fee. That's not cheap. So I went a couple of days in where there was no admission fee, and I think it was like 25% off or something like that. So last year when I went, there have been times when I walk out with bags full of books and times when I don't find much. So last year when I went, I think, walked out with like maybe three books. I didn't find a huge amount. And I never know, so going in, like what I'm going to find. So I took my kids there. They were picking out some books themselves. My daughter found a book that she likes, so she was sitting over on they have this thing inside an intermediate school, so she ended up sitting on bleachers and was reading her book and got really into it. So it was nice. I was able to kind of, take my time looking through the books, and I ended up finding a lot of books that seemed really, really interesting to me. So I'm going to show them to you now. Now, keep in mind, I don't know much about any of these books. This is one of the reasons I make these videos, so that if you recognize a book that you've read, you can let me know what to expect. But of course, it's just fun, sharing the sorts of things that you find in these things, because nobody in my real life cares at all about this sort of thing. So it's a pretty big stack. I'm going to try and go quick with this. The first one actually is this. I have been teaching myself to read some French, and I wouldn't say I'm great at it at all. I'm still in the early stages, but there was this book that was there, and I picked it up and started like looking through it, and I found that I was able to understand a lot. Sometimes I'd open up at random and I'd be able to read like 3 or 4 sentences before I'd come across something I didn't know. So, this doesn't seem to be written on a really high French level. So essentially, I bought this so that I can just practice reading some French. That's more what I'm, studying languages is sort of a hobby of mine at this point, but it is more for reading comprehension. That's why I do it. I understand that speaking a language, these things kind of can go hand in hand, and it can definitely help me, but I'm not worried about speaking the language. It's fun for me just to be able to learn how to read different languages. So this seems to be a book about young people in like the French Resistance in World War II. Although I thought that looks like a very modern type of photo. So, but I think that's kind of what this whole thing is. Anyhow, I don't know if I'll read the whole thing or what'll happen eventually, but it's something that I'll probably pick up here and there and just kind of start reading through and seeing what I can do, and maybe you can help me track my progress. All right, so yeah, I'm just gonna go for the pile. I got pile here and pile there, so we're just gonna go for it. This book looked interesting to me. The Unredeemed Captive, a family story from early America by John Demos. I like the cover design on this. And this seemed to be about a girl who was in Massachusetts in 1704, looks like. She was basically kidnapped by the Native American tribes around them. And she lived with them for a while. Again, I don't know a lot about these books, but it seems like they either got her back or she didn't really want to go back. She seemed to have gone native. And that's kind of what it is. And I guess her story was very famous during her own time. So this seems like a pretty interesting book about, European/American and Native American relations, the kind of incidents that maybe poked holes in some of what the the New Englanders, I don't know if they'd be called Puritans at this point, what they said about Native Americans and maybe what some people actually believed about them. Anyhow, it looks like it'd be an interesting look at the gray area of the time between the relations of the groups. Connected to that period, I found this. So, Vexed with Devils by Erica Gasser. Manhood and Witchcraft in Old and New England. So I had read some years ago, and it's downstairs in my library, Damned Women, which looked at the Salem witch trials and how gender played a role. Looked at especially why women were accused more and why they were actually more likely to admit being witches, and it had a lot to do with ideas about gender and like men's bodies being able to somehow resist temptation of Satan more. And I don't remember the details, but it was a really fascinating book. And it looks like this might be a good look at the other end of that. So looking at male gender and witchcraft, and it looks like it also, I guess, with men maybe more than women, there was kind of a blurred line between witchcraft and demonic possession. So anyhow, it looks like, again, interesting book. I love this cover design. That looks pretty awesome. I don't think this one really had like photographs or anything. No, but nevertheless, looked like a really cool topic. Next, I've got a work of fiction here. So, Drood by Dan Simmons. I have not yet read Dan Simmons, but he's an author I really want to get to, and he's an author that I think I would like a lot. I do have The Terror up there behind me, so I'll probably read that before I read this. But this seems to be a I'm sure a lot of other people watching this have read this already, but sort of a horror novel that has to do with Charles Dickens and towards the end of his life and an obsession. I don't know a lot about it, but again, the author, the kind of subject, the cover, it all grabbed me. And so that's why I picked this up. All right, here we go. This is a type of book that I don't usually pick up. I'm not usually one to pick up political books, especially like modern politics. But with the way, I'm an American, the way the country's been going, doing a lot of kind of soul searching in our nation. So I saw this, it was like $1. I just decided to pick it up. I know a lot of people read this about 4 years ago when it first came out. So Mary L. Trump's Too Much and Never Enough, How My Family Created the World's Most Dangerous Man. And I know that she's a trained clinical psychologist, a college professor, and she is the niece of Donald Trump, and she basically talks about how screwed up her family is, and she's kind of using her psychological background to explain what's going on, maybe on a psychological level, with Donald Trump and his other family members. She's obviously not a fan, and neither am I. But I figured this isn't that long of a book. It's like a little over 200 pages. You can see I've actually already started it. I sat down this morning and read the first like 50 pages. And so far it's very easy reading, and she throws some humor in there too. So, made me laugh a couple times. Political books I don't usually pick up that much just because I get tired of the partisanship. But because of her unique perspective, it made me much more interested in learning more about this, especially, unbelievably, we have another prospect of another presidency with this guy. Okay, so here's a quick little... I picked up a Star Trek book, Star Trek Next Generation Rogue Saucer by John Vornholt. We are in the midst of Book Trek, which is a annual summer event where myself and co-hosts and other participants, we read Star Trek fiction. Off camera, I have a bookshelf here over to my left that's just filled with Star Trek books. So that'll be going on there, and that's in the summer what I pull from, because Star Trek books are basically my version of a late summer beach read. So I didn't have this one, so I picked it up. Okay, so this one, I don't quite remember. I'll have to look at the back here to remember what this one was about. I have not read anything by Simon, is it Sharma? I think it's right. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And he'll be coming back up in this pile. The cover definitely caught my interest, the title. So I'll just read the back here. It says, like The Embarrassment of Riches and the Best-Selling Citizens, Simon Sharma's latest book is both history and literature of immense stylishness and ambition. But Dead Certainties goes beyond these more conventional histories to address the deeper enigmas that confront a student of the past. In order to do so, Sharma reconstructs and at times reinvents two ambiguous deaths. At first, that of General James Wolfe at the Battle of Quebec in 1759. The second, in 1849, that of George Parkman, an eccentric Boston Brahmin whose murder by an pecunious Harvard professor in 1849 was a grisly reproach to the moral sanctity of his society. Out of these stories, with all of their bizarre coincidences and contradictions, Sharma creates a dazzling and supremely vital work of historical imagination. Now, I read that and it seemed really interesting, but I'm still not sure what the hell the book is about, honestly. I know there's 2 deaths there. I don't exactly know what's going on here. But it seems to have to do with maybe the difficulties of studying history. Anyhow, if you've read this and you can let me know what to expect, I'd appreciate it. Pick this one up because I do teach history, and one of the units that I do has to do with the Aztecs. So I saw this. It's kind of a beat-up shape, but it's The Broken Spears, the Aztec account of the conquest of Mexico. So edited with an introduction by Miguel Leon Portilla. And I don't really know, I mean, obviously it's like, the conquest from the Aztec perspective, as it says. As I look through, I'm not entirely sure yet what I'm reading. I don't know if these are primary source accounts, about the conquest that have been kind of edited and presented here. So I don't really know what to expect yet, or if it's more of like a narrative history. But again, this is a topic that I teach, and it looked like it was, fairly quick read for the most part. It's not huge print, and it's only around 160 something pages. So, yeah. All right, a few more. This I got just as being a parent and a teacher. This seemed really interesting. Very cheap printing, but this is classic myths to read aloud. The great stories of Greek and Roman mythology, specially arranged for children 5 and up by an educational expert. So what he has done here we see, this is the second half of the book, listening level 2 for ages 8 and up. And he has taken Perseus and the Gorgon's head, and he has retold the story, I guess, for appropriate age levels, for their comprehension. And presumably, based on the title, it is to be read aloud to them to have them comprehend. The first half is the level 1, and that is for listeners ages 5 and up. Now, I have 2 children. My daughter is 8, my son is almost 12. I could probably this summer test it out with them, read these aloud. They're not very long, they're only a few pages, that's it. And I've been wanting to get them into mythology more and get them known more, so this would be a really good opportunity for that. I am also going to be starting to teach a unit involving ancient Greece this next school year. So this might also be a pretty good teaching resource to share with students some of the various myths at a level of reading that is appropriate for their age. So yeah, as a parent, as a teacher, this really caught my eye, so that's why I picked it up. All right, there's 4 more. And we're back to Simon Schama. I really hope I'm saying it right. It could be Skama. You can let me know politely if I'm saying it wrong. So this was mentioned in that other book. So this is Citizens, a Chronicle of the French Revolution. And in this is not at all a bad hardcover copy. This was originally published, I think, in the 80s, 89. Let me see if I can find the copyright date here. 89, yeah. And this has kind of become, from my understanding, a classic 1-volume history of the French Revolution, a time period that I do find fascinating, but I haven't read much about. So I'm really glad that I picked this up and that I found this. I mean, this and one other book that I haven't gotten to yet, I was most excited about finding. So I don't think I'm going to get to it this Historathon 2024, maybe Historathon 2025. I'll be able to read this one. So I picked this up. I wasn't sure what to expect from it. Medieval Warfare, Triumph and Domination in the Wars of the Middle Ages. I mean, it was a decent hardcover copy, and it's got some photos of somebody getting a barbed arrow pulled out of their back there. And I don't know if this is the kind of thing that I end up reading, cover to cover, or I just kind of pick through it. It has basically various sections here. So we've got, see on there, part 1, background, preparing for war, the army at war. Part 2, war in the north. We've got Bannockburn. Part 3, the 100 Years' War. Part 4, the War of the Roses. And then that's about it. So I think it's more of like a campaign history for a lot of these things. I did see some, here we go, we got some maps. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to expect out of this yet. But definitely seemed like an interesting topic and maybe potentially a good resource. But all right, another book that a lot of people have read that I haven't yet. Picked up this one. I Am Malala, the girl who stood up for education was shot by the Taliban. By, of course, Malala Yousafzai. Pretty much everybody knows her story. The Taliban got on a bus that she was riding on and shot her in the face. And of course she survived and she became a major activist for girls' education. Now, of course, I know the story. I've never read the book, though. I am also going to be teaching this coming year a unit on the Middle East. So I wanted to familiarize myself more with Malala's story, because that is definitely one that the students who will basically be able to sympathize with, to empathize with, to attach to. Her story will undoubtedly fascinate them. So I just wanted to get more perspective on the whole thing. That's why I picked this up. I'm considering in November, for Nonfiction November, focusing on biographies that I have laying around. The kinds of biographies I don't normally get to in my normal reading cycles. This would be something like this. And I have some other biographies in the shelves behind me that I just don't get to otherwise. So I think November is going to be a month of biographies. And the last one, I was really excited to find this, and one in just great condition too. A History of Histories. So we've got Epics, Chronicles, Romances, and Inquiries from Herodotus and Thucydides to the 20th Century by John Burroughs. Just what a beautiful looking book. And I like deckled edges. I don't know. I know everybody doesn't like it, but I happen to like them quite a bit. I don't know if this is the one that one of my co-hosts for Historathon, John David, he was doing a series of videos where he's talking about historiography. And I don't know if this is the book that he was basing it on, but it could be. But it looks at, here's a table of contents, it looks at ancient Greece, ancient Rome, early Christendom. We've got the revival of secular history. Part 5 is studying the past. We've got antiquarianism, Hume, Gibbon. Just kind of going through here real quick. Marxism, anthropology and history. It looks like it looks at everything. So this looks like it'll be an excellent resource about historiography, about the study of history, and how it's been written over time. So yeah, this is one that maybe next year I'll kind of like read throughout the year, different sections, depending on what period of Historathon we're in. I'm not sure. But yeah, again, I love this cover design, and basically found a beautiful condition. So really happy about this. All right, that's it. Finally reached the end. There's a lot. Almost 20 minutes of just showing off some books. My wife's eyes bugged out of her head when she saw the amount of books that were in the bag that I brought home. That's all right. It only happens once a year. Go under this book sale. I think there's one more book sale near me in August, and then after that, there's really nothing. So I'm just gonna indulge while I can, because I don't get to watch very often. Yeah, look at that. So I obviously can't hold all of these up, but if you've read any of these and can let me know what they're like, I'd appreciate it. As always, thank you, BookTube.